Well, it's not about computer viruses, but we are talking about worms. This is Worms of Mass Destruction, developed by Team 17 on a completely new engine designed to perfectly emulate the old one, end quote. It's about $30, which is more than I paid for a Worms game back in the day when Worms was actually popular. But what is it? Worms are back in their most destructive game ever with a gorgeous hand-drawn 2D look, brand new weapons, and the introduction of crafting, vehicles, and buildings, plus the return of some much-loved classic weaponry and gameplay. Worms W.M.D. is the best Worms experience ever. And, full disclosure, they did send us keys. So let's kick off the chairquisition. 1 chair means that it should be fed to the worms. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. And 4 chairs means that it needs to go in. The worm needs to go into a tequila bottle. We also got our categories of doom mixed with the working shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So then let's kick this off. Did Worms W.M.D. make with the working?
Initially, no, Brad, it did not. It failed miserably, horribly, and without explanation. Then I opened it in the folder, and it just ran. Now, we did touch on this last week when the game was released. Just setting your LD library path because, who needs any pesky things like Steam Runtime in 2016? Gotta really respect this development team, being brave like that. That's a pretty tricksy move. But that will manage to get it to run on the system that they tested it on, which it does not run on out of the box, the Ubuntu 14.04 LTS. That's the box of business here with a 980 displayed at the 4K's UHD, as some people like to call it. Now we do talk about the performance. Didn't even bother to try it out at UHD. It's just running it at 1080, and it somehow manages to be just a little bit choppy while panning and scrolling. Not really so much with the zooming on that 980, which just a bit perplexing. I would tell you how many FERPs we were getting, but it doesn't support Steam Overlay. But considering it doesn't support Steam Runtime, I was like, yeah, it probably doesn't. However, unlike these other two yahoos, pretty playable. So I'm giving it a solid 3.
All right, so this is the longest spiel I'm going to have in this review, so I got to make it count. So from the beginning, like Ben said, not tested against Steam Runtime, which is a bad thing. There are missing some libraries, consequently, if you are running this on non-Ubuntu-based systems. You got to go to the games directory after installing the ZFS stream package and libcurl in Fedora. You need to create some symbolic links. I included what you need to do in the notes, so you guys can just copy-paste out of it. And after all of that, the game will launch. It will bring me to this game uses an autosave feature and then segfault. And I tried to get this working. Oh my, did I try. I cleared library paths. I set environment variables. I sent Team 17 a bunch of information to help them out. And nada. I kept poking at it up until a few minutes before we started recording. And nothing. So, yeah, I got to give this 1 chair because it don't work on non-Ubuntu-based distributions. There's a few threads of this in their support forums. Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, it doesn't even work on Ubuntu-based distributions out of the box. That's a really big one, because I'm running Ubuntu made 1604 with the FX8370E and the GTX 1080, and on my end, it doesn't save custom teams, though I'm guessing that's because it core dumps whenever you exit the game. Even if you exit naturally, the way the process actually ends is through a core dump. The UI is flaky at best and borderline unusable at worst. The game will freeze the moment you press a button in-game proper on your controller or your keyboard, or if you even so much as move the mouse, if you have a non-English locale set in your particular flavor of Linux. Now, the sound itself, go ahead and add a nice dose of buffer underruns, because I made the mistake of trying to launch this game while I was listening to a YouTube video. It's horrible. But on my end, I managed to sort everything out by adding export LC underscore all equals C, which basically just sets all the locales to C, which is the like the default base one. It's just English, basically. And export pulse latency MSEC60 and export LD library path 0. So yeah,
just check the show notes.
Yeah, just check the show notes. Everything will be there. You can just copy paste that into run.sh It's easy. These changes, though, will get noped the moment the game gets updated. So after everything I had to go through to just get the game to even start, I have to give it 1 chair.
Yeah, so I should also mention, I forgot to say that during my segment, I tested it on both the TV box run with the AMD A10 5800K with the GTX 750 Ti and the i7 6700K with the 980. So, 1 chair for mix with the working. This is actually a first, I think. Let's move on to Shiny and Sounds. Then
Shiny and Sounds more like short and sweet. It looks a lot like, well, Worms. A darker, grittier version of Worms Reloaded, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at the end of the day. Each theater of war, it is hella detailed. They didn't spare any cost doing that, because they sure want to charge you for it. It looks nice, along with all the weapons of mass destruction. Kind of beautiful. I mean, just really liking that. They're at Worm animations. We got to talk about that, I guess. They retain the original charm found in the earlier games. That's good. Nothing new. Nothing's going to blow you away. If we get to the noise really only got my attention one time. The one time it did was the bad rapping level with the bad rapping voices that made me want to stab my brain organ with a Q-tip. And I almost did. After that, nope the headphones, put on a bit of Slayer as one is to do. That's it. Everything you would expect from a Worm game, it's here. If that's what you're looking for, you got it. But it doesn't necessarily improve on anything. It's a lot less cartoony than the previous Worms. That's really all I can say about it. Not bad, not great. Definitely, solid 3.
Well, the text that reads segmentation fault core dump is super crystal clear, so I gotta give it points for that. 1 chair.
Yeah, no, it's Worms, right down to the selection of slightly different high-pitched utterances. If you've played a Worms game before, you know exactly what to expect, unless you have a non-English locale set, at which point you can't even see the UI properly. 2 chairs.
All right, well, that's 2 chairs for Shiny and Sounds. Controls, Ven, how did it work?
Works out of the box with the Xclone 360 controller, no issues whatsoever. Piece of cake, and so it's 3 chairs plus 1 because I forgot to load 4 because I didn't think we would ever need it for this game.
Oh, snap. Yeah, no, it controls awesomely until it crashes, which is before you can even use the control, so 1 chair.
Yeah, no, the controls on my end would freeze the game because of the locale issue. That's not a problem with the input system itself or even the mechanics of the game. It's just a technical issue with the engine. So I can't really ding at chairs in the controls specifically. Now, it does work with the Logitech F310, the Mistress, and the NVIDIA Shield controller. All of these work just fine, so I'm guessing they're using some form of SDL in one shape or another. But you can also play the game just fine with the keyboard and gerbil. So for me, it gets 4 chairs. You can rebind it all still. Yeah, pretty awesome.
Well, no, that's 3 chairs for Control. Up next is Fun. Ven, did you enjoy Worms?
Absolutely. Maybe. I don't know. Here's the thing. Let's just get this out of the way because it's going to be very short. The multiplayer is Linux only. This game is absolutely dead on arrival, out of the box. Life expectancy for this worm is not. It is no more. It is practically deceased. The single player, yes, it does exist, but, if the AI is not busy killing itself, it's flipping the hell out. One of the two, or taking forever just to do some basic decisions and shoot back in your general direction. So all you're going to get out of that is a light training scenario at best and just mind-numbing boredom at worst. I made it through quite a few of the campaigns. At no point I was like, whoa, this is challenging. It's like, okay, me and Pedro. I was like, Pedro, play with me. So we did that. Then we decided to have some Worms multiplayer action after. And Hey, it worked. I probably would like to think that we have like the Space Odyssey, dun dun dun, because we're probably the only two people who have yet on Linux to play it on multiplayer, because all you're going to find is an empty lobby. That's it. You can't even play with your Mac brother and sisters. That sucks. If you are playing the single-player game, it's Worms. There's nothing new here to see. Oh, but then there's crafting. Yes, technically they added it in a crafting mechanic that you'll only need when the game's like, hey, you need to craft something. Because reasons, and we put it in the game. It's like, but it was like, shut up and craft something. Fuck you, game. Seriously. I'm still going to give it 2. I really wanted to give it like 1 with an asteroid, simply because of the fuck you pricing.
Yeah, see, I actually like Worms. I played a lot of it in high school. I have a good amount of emotional investment in Worms, and I wanted to like this game. I was actually excited when we were reviewing it because I was like, oh yeah, I love Worms. Unfortunately, as you heard before, I cannot play this game, so I cannot give it anything other than 1 share.
Yeah, it's Worms, though. It's if you've played a Worms game before, I remember playing the original Worms on the Sega Saturn. Yeah, it's Worms. It's got a bit more detailed graphics going on, but nothing to write home about. You already know whether or not you like this game. The additions to this particular title don't really seem all that important. Speaking of which, I can imagine... I kind of imagine... I can sort of see it, how it went during development when they decided on said additions. It's like, oh, what's the hot new craze in gaming mechanics nowadays? And another developer went like, roguelike mechanics? No. We already have randomly generated maps. Crafting? Genius! How do we work that in the game? Well, we'll have the players collect the bits of weapons they want to craft in crates. Won't that just mean that matches will be played all the way through without a single crafted weapon ever be created, let alone used? Oh, I'm sorry, I can hear you over this massive erection. Yeah, that's kind of how it goes, because you can go through entire matches like I did with Ven. If you're watching the produced version, you can actually see us playing right there. I didn't craft a single weapon. Ven didn't craft a single weapon. It's pointless. Take any Worms game, a 2D one, because the 3D ones don't exist in my book. At crafting drivable vehicles lifted directly from Metal Slug and turrets, for what they're worth, add a nice dose of technical issues and a lack of cross-platform multiplayer. What do you get? 1 share.
Oh man, that's 1 share for fun, and that wraps up to being a 1 share game for Worms W.M.D. Now let's just make this a cautionary tale. QA your game before you release it, and maybe if your emphasis is on multiplayer, make sure that you can play it between operating systems, because it's not that hard. Lots of people have figured it out. There's a ton of pre-existing frameworks to do just that.
Indeed, at the end of the day, and also, I understand it's a very niche title, and it's also priced like one. You're not going to get Linux sales. Well, you might. Some people just want to play. I understand. Somebody is screaming into their monitor and it's like, but I only care about. That's brilliant. I mean, if you want to drop $29.99, here the developer's like, how dare you say it? It's like, listen, man, to me, it's not worth that. I'm not a huge fan of the Worms series. I don't have anything personally against it, but I didn't grow up with it. I can take it or fucking leave it, and this I have chosen to fucking leave. Yeah,
seriously, there is absolutely no point out of playing this game than the first time you try.
Oh, by the way, thanks guys for sending us keys.
Yes, thank you, Team 17, but there's absolutely no point to playing this game after you've tried it and you see, oh, okay, it's more Worms, but it's riddled with technical issues.
It's like the one game you would want to play with randos, and there's no randos to play with.
I just spent 1 hour trying to figure out how to get your fucking game to start without any issues actually getting in my way, like to the point where if I select something in the UI, it just goes invisible. What the fuck? No, that's bad.
Yeah, so that wraps up the review segment.